I built this custom mountain to cover my cobblestone farm a few episodes ago, and now we finally get to use all of the cobblestone that we have been collecting from the cobblestone farm to build ourselves a wither skeleton farm. This farm is going to give us a ton of wither skeleton skulls, as well as a ton of coal, an excellent fuel source for however long this world survives. The very first thing that I did for the project was pick which location I would like to build our coal factory. And after analyzing the map a little bit, I decided that in our industrial section, we could cover up the tiny ravine right next to the iron farm, and that would make a great space for our coal factory. Which leads us to step number 1, terraforming. Terraforming this project really wasn't too hard. I just made an outline of how big the build was going to be, terraformed along the sides, and then made sure to fill in everything in the center. And now that we have our entire space terraformed out, it's just about time to start collecting all the resources that we're going to need to fill up our chest monster. Now I've already designed what I want the coal factory to look like in my creative testing world, which means that in my hardcore world, we can go into my schematics, pick the coal factory, and look at the material list. And this one is quite a medium-sized project, I suppose. I have definitely done bigger in this world, but I've also definitely done smaller. So either way, I guess it's time we start gathering some resources. This wither skeleton farm is getting us one step closer to achieving beacons, which means that I'm one step closer to being able to build a copper farm and not die while I'm AFKing, which I am so excited about. Copper isn't the worst item to collect in Minecraft, but it definitely is one of the more complicated farms to automate it. So every step that I can take is a small victory. This build is intended to be a factory for coal. The very first floor that I'm building here has a giant pile of coal blocks in storage, as well as 3 different furnaces. 2 of them are inside in the main building, and 1 is outside under a pavilion area where the miners can make some new tools. Now, the very first floor is actually mostly just for detail, as the most important part is actually not on this floor, but rather on the second floor. But nonetheless, we still have a lot of pretty details in here just to decorate getting up into that second floor. And speaking of details, I have a few more that I would like to add to this. First off, we can grab some lava from our very dwindling lava lake down here. And then we can put 1, 2, and 3 sources of lava in this section. And then next we can grab some water and do 1, 2, and 3, just like the lava section. And then if we grab ourselves some sticks and pop on over to the farming area where we should have some excess leather in the cow crusher, then we can craft ourselves up a couple of item frames here to place right on this side. And we might as well grab a couple of old tools here, and then we can go ahead and place these in the item frames, maybe hanging upside down. That way it kind of looks like after all of that mining of coal, the miners can come in and say, oh, I need a new tool of some sorts. And then they can heat up the metals in here, cool them off in here, put them down on the anvil and hammer it out, and hang them up here for other miners to grab. It's probably not actually accurate to how someone would want to go about making tools for a mining station, but that is going to be my Minecraft version of it. The final detail that I would like to add to this first floor is actually to this carriage up here. As you can kind of tell, it's holding a bunch of coal blocks in it, and it's either going to head over into the farming area and supply them with all the coal that they need, or it's going to take a left and head into the city or towards my house. But before it can do that, it actually needs something to pull it so that it can move. And luckily in a past episode, we collected a ton of horses and all of you guys were able to name them. So I think it would put them to very good use in the world if we took 2 of these guys. And I think we're gonna go for the ones with saddles just because it's gonna be a little easier to get them out of here. Oh boy, this is a slow one. It's a good thing he's only pulling coal. All right, Mr. Oat, you can be hooked up right here so that we have horse number 1 pulling our coal carriage. Luckily, you don't have to be too fast for that. And horse number 2 coming in much faster. Nay, looks like you are going to be pulling most of the weight, buddy. I apologize. But now we have our 2 horses hooked up to our coal wagon, and it can head over into the farming area or over into town, wherever it needs to go for delivering all of their supplies. And with the completion of the first half of this build, I think it's time to take a little bit of a break and work on our quality of life section for this video. And today's quality of life tasks are actually a couple of random items. First off, we made this chicken coop a couple of episodes ago, and there is a ton of eggs in here that have now been collected. And I actually originally intended on this being entirely full of chickens. That way it feels a little more lively. So if we use these eggs, hopefully a couple of baby chickens will come from it. There we go. And also hopefully I spawn-proofed this enough that they shouldn't be able to get out. And there we go, all of our eggs are done. And it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for some reason they all are really interested in the actual egg farm. I wonder if it's because there is an older chicken technically right here. So they're trying to path to it somehow. I don't know, to be honest. Minecraft mechanics hurt my brain. But anyways, now that that's a little bit more lively of a pen, I want to head into the Nether very quickly. And when I say very quickly, I mean literally very quickly grab a stack out of here and head immediately straight out. The Nether scares me too much. I do not waste time in there. And with that honeycomb, we're gonna head up to the top of my base, where I'm finally going to fix all of this copper that has not been waxed, which has been bugging both me and I'm sure you guys for quite a while. And the last quality of life item that I would like to do today, and this one is actually a suggestion by one of you guys, which we're going to need a lot of glowstone for. I originally wanted to use some glow ink sacks because I thought that would be just a little prettier and more efficient, but I unfortunately only have 2 of those and not really a great way of getting those yet. So we're gonna opt in for the glowstone instead. Then we can take it upstairs in the map room, where I want to dig a little bit behind this. Oh, hello. And I want to replace all of this bone block with some glowstone so that behind the map is glowing. And like I thought, it's going to break it. Doesn't break it immediately? Okay, maybe we can utilize that and switch it out really quickly. Yeah! Okay, so let's do these 2 over here, switch them out super quick so that the item frame doesn't pop. And is that even adding brightness? Yeah, that definitely has added some lighting behind that map. Unfortunately, that means it's also added some lighting back here as well. I brought a bunch of materials because I didn't know how I wanted to cover this up, but I actually think I'm just going to use some trapdoors and block over all the lighting, just like that. Now we should be able to fill back in this wall, and we have a perfectly lit up map in our map room. And again, that was one of your guys' suggestions, which I love implementing into this world, so if you have any, make sure to leave them in the comments, and I'll try to get to them in the next quality of life section. And now that we're done with our quality of life section, I think it's about time we start working on the second half of this build once again. I had a hard time with the proportions of this build, so it ended up being a lot taller than I intended it to be, but I think it turned out okay because it gives varying heights between all of the buildings in this area. It also unintentionally looks like the larger version of the chicken coops, so at least it also blends into the build styles in this area as well. And I think the last thing that I want to add to this build before we are complete is of course a pathway connecting from here over into the front area and probably somewhere around here to the horse area. After all, they can't drive on nothing. So let's get rid of our temporary workstation right here. Then we can grab a few supplies to make a path, and of course start carving out a little bit of where we want it to go. Then we can start adding in all of our bricks. And speaking of digging things out, we actually need to head into the Nether for the second part of this build. Now that might be a little bit confusing to you guys, as I've not done a second part in the Nether before. So let me explain on my map. Right here where my red arrow is our nether spawn. And if I make our way all the way over here, a couple of weeks ago I found myself a perfect cross in a nether fortress that is completely surrounded by lava. Can't really tell because it's black on this map, but that location is perfect for a nether skeleton farm. So what we need to do now is figure out what direction that is from us. And it looks like we are now facing the right way, so we need to dig in this direction until we make it all the way over to that nether fortress. But of course I am entirely unprepared, so let's figure that out first. I currently have full health on all of my armor, shield, and most of my tools, and I have almost completely full food, so I think we should probably start by emptying my inventory. Then we can grab ourselves some blocks to work with. I'm actually going to start off with some netherrack, even though I know we're going to mine a bunch of that, just because I want to make that initial tunnel, and where we're starting out doesn't actually have any blocks for me to carve out. Next up, we're going to have lots of blocks like I'm saying, so I think we might finally make ourselves an ender chest. If I take some ender pearls, blaze rods, and some obsidian, then we can go ahead and craft ourselves that ender chest. And of course, we also have a silk touch diamond pickaxe, so we should be good just to pick this up anytime we need it again. Next, I want to head upstairs into our extra armory storage and grab ourselves some sort of gold. Maybe not those ones, those are pretty broken. Let's make ourselves some new boots, just like that. And just for overkill, we might as well start enchanting these golden boots to have these same enchantments that our netherite boots have, since we'll probably be going into the nether often enough that we'll need them. So with a bunch of emeralds and books in our hands, let's grab ourselves protection 2. Of course, we're going to need a couple of those to get all the way up to protection 4. Then we can grab a mending book right next to him. And then right next to him, we can also grab a thorns book. Next up is going to be Depth Strider. That can go up to level 3, so it looks like we're going to need 2 of those books to combine them together. Then if we head upstairs, we can grab ourselves 2 Unbreaking 2 books, so we can mix those together for Unbreaking 3. And then we can grab 2 of these Feather Falling 3 books, so we can mix those together for Feather Falling 4. Now we can head over to the Armor Smiths, so we can apply all of these books to those boots. Hopefully I have enough levels, and enough anvils, frankly, at this point. Let's start by mixing all of the books together. There goes anvil number 1, and we end up with 6 books, which matches these 6 enchantments that we've got on these boots. I needed a few more levels, so I spent some time grinding at the skeleton farm, and now we should have enough levels to start combining all of these together. Well, almost. One more time at the skeleton farm hopefully should do it. And now we should be able to fully max out our golden boots. So if we switch these guys out, then with our beautiful new golden boots, and all the supplies that I stocked in our ender chest for us, we can finally start heading over to the nether to begin constructing the tunnel all the way over to that nether fortress. This tunnel was actually surprisingly undangerous and quite relaxing to create. We might have done a little bit of overkill with all of our preparations, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I just ended up turning on a show and made a nice 2x2 space all the way down until we arrived to the nether fortress location. I even got a little too much in the groove and ended up adding a railway to get through the tunnel. That way I don't have to walk the entire way. And if I take this all the way back to the nether spawn, then I can show you guys what I've done with the place. Oh, did not mean to do that. And then I can show you a couple of improvements that I've done around here. First off, this is our original portal, and this one is our new portal. This one just comes from our new building that we built this episode. And the other thing that I did was add all of this carpet around here, which was my attempt to mitigate the magma cubes from spawning as frequently as they currently are. And now that our entire nether spawn is mostly safe, except for ghasts apparently, and so is our tunnel all the way over to the nether fortress, we can start our second resource gathering montage of the episode to grab all of the things that we're going to need for our wither skeleton coal farm. Gathering all the resources that we need for this farm really wasn't too hard. It was mostly in all of our chests, so I just went around finding all the things that I needed, crafting it into the respectable items, and then putting the items into our handy dandy new ender chest for easy transport over to the nether fortress. The only thing that I didn't have that was on this list of things that I needed was actually some slime. Apparently I've just never run into slime in this world before yet, so I ended up going on a mission and I found ourselves the smallest swamp biome I've seen in a while. And after waiting for the night to set, I was actually really worried that there wasn't going to be any slime to spawn, since most of the mobs that were spawning were just regular skeletons, creepers, and zombies. But finally, towards the end of the night, after fighting my way through, I found 2 big slimes that provided more than enough slime that we're going to need for the moment, right before the sun came up. Which means that now that we have our sticky pistons from that slime, we are officially ready to head over to our nether fortress and begin building. This farm is one of the more complicated redstone builds that I've done, so I decided not to record anything live and just show you guys through a replay video instead. I started out by building a square platform of netherrack and then surrounded that with a ring of nether brick that I covered with carpets later. Next, I needed a piglin in the center to lure the wither skeletons in. It took a long while, but after pivoting to a double wide staircase, I was able to lure the piglin all the way over towards the farm and lock him into place. Now going beneath the platform for the actual redstone portion of the build, the left box is where all of the stone swords get automatically destroyed. The right box is where everything is auto-sorted into some chests, and the big glass box is the killing chamber. This is actually a mixture of 3 different farms that I mashed together. I'll put them all in the description for you guys to check out, and the download of this version of the farm is also available on my Discord. And finally, for the last portion of this farm, I had already started spawn-proofing a lot of this area, but I did one final push to improve the rates just a little bit more. Now, the entire point of that farm was, of course, to get some wither skeleton skulls. I still have the one from earlier this episode, which we got by just casually exploring the nether. Then I also got another one while we were building our farm, which means that if we head back into the nether and back to our farm, where we can come up into this killing chamber, and eventually there should be some wither skeletons spawning here. So I'll do a really quick AFK session so we can get that very last wither skeleton skull. And I believe I actually just saw a skeleton skull fall, so let's check in our chests and see if we got anything. And nothing in these ones, but things have been getting stuck in the hoppers lately. There we go! There is skeleton skull number 3, and I can bring it back up here into my ender chest and put this one with the other 2, which means we finally have all of the skulls that we need to fight a wither. Let's make sure I don't lose this one. Now, of course, that is not going to be in this episode. I don't think I'm very prepared, and we've already done enough this episode. That being said, there are a few other things that I'm also leaving out for another episode. The first one, as you can obviously tell, my auto sorter isn't very organized or sorting anything at the moment. And that is because there is supposed to be some items, I believe, on this row of hoppers, essentially telling the hopper to only collect that item in that row of chests. And although I might have enough bones and coal now to set up that item filter, I most definitely am going to need a lot more wither skeleton skulls. I believe we need 48. And then the other thing that I am leaving out this episode, which I don't think is entirely necessary for this farm, is actually to do with these hoppers right here. As you can see, you flick this lever and it pulls them upwards. And all that does is you can put some tamed wolves in both of these slots, push them up, and then they will actually fight the wither skeletons for you, making this farm automatic. Now, luckily for me, I actually do have a really nice netherite sword, so I figured the rates would be better just farming it manually for now. And our third and final thing that I'm going to leave out this episode is actually up here on the platform, right next to Piglet, and that is that each one of these netherrack spaces is actually supposed to be filled with wither roses, which is basically supposed to make it so that only withers can spawn on this platform, which obviously is going to hinder our rates for now. And you can kind of already see in the background, we've got plenty of mobs still spawning everywhere. So I figure I'll come back and make our rates even better in another episode, but right now it's taken me almost 4 months just to complete this project. So I would like to very quickly move on. But before we can do that, we need to take all of our junk back to the base. And then second of all, I need to give you guys an official tour of the inside of our coal factory. You guys have already seen the outside portion where they build all of the new tools, and of course our horse carriage with all of the coal in the back of the carriage. But if you go inside through one of these big doors, I've got 2 cute little desks right here just to fill some space, and 2 giant furnaces using all of the coal, which is also stacked up here in the corner, and this corner, and a little bit of this corner. But if you go straight back through here, there's a little bit of a hidden ladder for you to get up into the second floor, where those furnaces continue, and we've got a nice cute little desk with some candles. And of course you guys saw me go through this earlier. I had the nether portal just behind this wall here, and if we go up these stairs, there is also a third layer, which is just full of some empty storage for the moment. I figure in the future, if we have any overflow from the wither skeleton farm, this is where it can go. And that is pretty much just about it. It was a nice and simple interior that I made. I did kind of experiment with some half cracked open windows, just because I'd imagine they don't want to smell the coal all day. And some ventilation would be nice with all the smoke. But besides that, like I said, the design was super simple on this interior, and although this project was absolutely tedious by the end, I did actually really enjoy completing it. And I do hope that you guys also enjoyed watching the video, and if you did, don't forget to consider subscribing, because I would love to see you guys in the next episode. And speaking of next episodes, here's a couple that I think that you would enjoy.